I'm here. A few minutes late, but nevertheless, we're here. Oh, don't go away. There's too much light coming in the back. We're going to take care of that. Let there not be light. Let there be no light. Better. Okay. This morning I was reading. I couldn't stop reading. I was reading about Krishna's flute, and I couldn't stop reading. And I had to pull myself away to get ready for class. So here we are. So yesterday we were reading things Prabhupada said about questions that were asked to Srila Prabhupada about the spiritual world. Like Satyarupa, she likes to ask questions. And she was asking a question about the spiritual world, about living entities who become so-called inanimate objects like earrings or tables, or she was asking me about that. And I was, of course we know that Krishna's flute is very fortunate. The story goes that it was actually a gopi who was with Krishna alone, and Radharani cursed her to become like a reed, and Krishna said, I'll make you a flute. That's one story, because this gopi liked to sing. So, you have such stories. But I was remembering, as some of you know, before I was devotee, I was raised near the ocean. And if you're raised near the ocean, you like to go swimming in the waves and surfing and body surfing and so forth. And I was very attached to that. I'm just trying to get organized on my wires here. I was very attached to that, and I thought, well, if Krishna surfs, I want to become his surfboard. So yeah. There are living entities who want to take positions of facilitating Krishna that way, but Lord Chaitanya came basically to give Madhurya Rasa. Of course, Satyarupa will say, yeah, but you could become Krishna's flute and Madhurya Rasa. Yeah, so it doesn't necessarily mean that if you become so-called inanimate object, you're in Shanta Rasa. But I never heard Prabhupada say, you can become a mother of Krishna. No, I did hear Prabhupada say you can become a friend, you could become a servant, you could become a parent. But I never heard him talk about becoming a cow or a tree or a table. Although you can. But sometimes Prabhupada would say the cows are in Shanta Rasa, and sometimes he said no, they're in Vatsalya Rasa, they're giving milk. So when you study these things, one of the realizations you have is that nothing is just one way. That you can be in Shanta Rasa, but it could be different ras, even though it's a cow. And so the relationships are deep, they're dynamic, and they're facilitating the desire of the devotees. And that's the ultimate understanding of rasa, that it's to fulfill Krishna's desire. Okay, so today we were going to continue reading from the document, which were questions to Srila Prabhupada about the spiritual world. And we have another document which I think we should also read a little bit, which is directly about the nature of the spiritual world. So, Kamini, why don't you bring both of those up, and then we'll read a little from both, and we can start with the document, which I will tell you the name of it. I think it's called In the Spiritual World. In the spiritual world, we have that document. And then we have the document, Questions about the Spiritual World. So we'll begin reading from In the Spiritual World, because we only read a few things. I don't know if you remember how much we read from that. But while I'm chanting, maybe Kamini, you could figure that out. You know how Prabhupada said that different living entities are attracted by different aspects of Krishna through different senses, and the deer is attracted by the flute. Well, they're attracted by Krishna's flute, but the hunter plays the flute, at least some hunters do. They play the flute, and then the deer is attracted, he stops, and then they get shot. So music is very alluring. Could keep us in the material world if we're not careful. Right? Better be careful. Let's get a little more light in here. Yesterday I came to my desk and it was all wet. And I was like, where is this water coming from? Leaking from the air conditioner. It's so humid here in Florida. It's crazy. It doesn't have to be hot for us to sweat. It's a bit like Mayapur, maybe even worse if that's possible. Yeah, it's crazy. Hold on a second. I just have to turn off the air conditioner in this other room. And then I will open some windows just to ensure we have enough oxygen. Okay. As every morning we go to Vrindavan, this morning is no different. We will also go. Maybe I should pull this around. Then I can look at you. What do you think? Ah! Oh, Krishna. Okay. How about that? Wow. Something new. Interesting. Very interesting. It's not cooperating. Radha Madhava, perfect description of Vrindavan. Right? Perfect description. That's what Prabhupada said about this song. It's a perfect description of Anandana Braja Jana Ranjana Shodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vana Chari Jamuna Tira Vana Chari Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jayo Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. One more time. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Taigo Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Let me just move this out of the way. Should I give the class like this and play while I teach? Background music? That'd be interesting, right? Then I could chant all the verses. What do you think? No, I don't think so. Maybe one day. Remember this song? Any of you heard this song? Mind, body, family, I give to you, my Lord. Offering at your lotus feet, oh Nanda Kishore. Any of you heard that song? Then the next part. In life or in death, all difficulties go by remembering your lotus feet, oh Nanda Kishore. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Manasa Deha Geha. The life of a worm I'll take, I forget, as your devotee true. I wouldn't want the life of Brahma being adverse to you. If I must be reborn, let it be in the home of your devotee. Like that. I just heard Mother Rambaru, I don't know when this was, but she was playing a harp and singing a song about Krishna in English. And she was saying that Lord Chaitanya instructed Narottam to sing songs about Krishna in his own language. So I got inspired to sing in English because a lot of times we're singing in Bengali and we don't know what we're saying. We're singing the song. I once asked devotees, I said, have you ever gone to the deities and said, you can give me life or you can kill me? Whatever you want to do, it's totally okay with me. You know, you're my Lord, I'm your servant, and like, no problem. You want to kill me? Just like, go right ahead. Have you ever said that? Raise your hand. Not one person raised their hand. And I said, do you know the song Manasa Deha Geha? Manasa Deha Geha Yokin Shumo. He said, you know that song? Everybody said yes. I said, have you ever sang the song? Everybody said yes. I said, well, do you know what you were singing? And I said, what was I singing? You can give me life or kill me. Marobi Rakobi Yokin Shumo. That's what you were singing. Oh my God, I didn't know that. If I would have known that, I wouldn't have sang it. No, they didn't say that. But you get my point, right? You're singing something like it's very, very heavy. Very, very heavy. You can give me life, you could take it away, whatever you want. And my mind, my body, my home, it's all yours. I give it to you. I was reading this morning. Sometimes they say the flute, we have to be like the flute. I was reading about the flute, and it said we have to be like the flute. The flute's hollow, and therefore Krishna can play on it because there's no interference. So we have to be hollow, and Krishna can play on us. So that was the mood of that song, and it was so interesting that everybody has sang that song many times. Manasa deha geho yokinshumor arpilantu apade nanda kishore. You know that one? There may be another melody also. Yes? There may be another melody. I forget. And that's what it means, and nobody knew it. I mean, the Bengalis know it. It's their language. Maybe if you speak Hindi, you kind of know. Get the idea. If you speak Sanskrit, you kind of understand. So yeah. So I decided, well, why don't we sing some things in English? That way, we actually understand. You know, it's kind of like English is not considered a sacred language, although, of course, Prabhupada didn't give us his books in Bengali and say, here, learn Bengali. But then some devotees say, but the Bengali language, it's like chanting these songs in English, sometimes it doesn't like translate well. Well, that's true as well. The language is purifying, but if you're going to chant in another language, would you like some good advice? Or if you're going to speak in another language, learn what it means. Otherwise, you're singing, my dear Lord, you can take my life away. You can give me life. You can kill me. You can do whatever you want. You can take my home. You can have my wife. And then you're singing that song, and the next day Krishna takes your home and your wife, and you're in the hospital. And I'm like, hey, this is not fair. And I say, Prabhu, that's what you were praying for yesterday. No, I wasn't. I was just singing Manasa Deha. Yeah, well, that's what it means. So, as they say, be careful what you pray for. Well, before you sing the bhajan and you're going to pray for it, you might want to read what it means, because maybe Krishna will actually do what you're saying. Of course, you might say, but if you don't know what you're saying, then you're not really praying for it, so he won't do it, which is interesting argument. Because I tend to agree with that. If you don't know what you're saying, then you're not really praying for it. You're just singing a song. Manasa deha geha yokinchumo arpilantu apade nandi. We're all having fun, and we're all together like one family, and we're singing bhajans. I have no idea what we're singing. Very interesting. Hare Krishna movement, very interesting things go on. They sing songs, they don't even know what they're singing. Do you find that interesting? We have an interesting movement, yeah. No, Prabhu, but it's purifying. Yeah, it's more purifying to know what you're singing. I don't doubt it's purifying. I'm not saying it's not. It's more purifying. You could say, but that Brahmin was reading Bhagavad Gita and he couldn't read and he was crying. He had bhava for thinking Krishna's driving Arjuna's chariot. Yeah, that's there also. But it's better if you can read it, right? We were reading from questions from the spiritual world, and then there's the other document in the spiritual world. I wanted to read a few things from that in the beginning. Sound is cracking. Something wrong with the sound. It's the ecstasy of my voice. That's all. Nothing wrong. Everything's connected. Anyone else having a problem? Beta? Something wrong with the sound. Sound? No, it's the ecstasy of my voice. Krishna, Krishna, Hare, Hare. Lower it. How's this? Krishna, Krishna, Hare, Hare. Hare Ram. Yeah, it's called, I think that maybe the mic was distorting. One of my godbrothers said, when you record, I can't hear you. It's not loud enough. I said, okay, I'll make it louder. Maybe I made it too loud. Better now? Better? Okay. Better now? Let me know. Yesterday's class, we continue where I left off yesterday, that we were still on questions. Yeah. Let's go to the document in the spiritual world, because we left that like 2 weeks ago and we neglected it. Sound is okay. Okay, is everything better now? It's okay? Everything sounds good? Yes? It's okay? It's good? Okay. So, Kamaniya, there's a document called In the Spiritual World. In the spiritual world. And we only read a few things from this, and I can't remember. But we can, this is a few things that Prabhupada's saying from Bhagavad Gita. It's quite basic, but as I mentioned before, I think it's necessary just to establish this, some basics. Let's start with the third quote. We read more than 3 quotes. It's called No Need for Light. This is from Bhagavad Gita 13:8. 18, excuse me. In the Vedic literature, we find that in the spiritual kingdom, there is no need of sun or moon because the effulgence of the Supreme Lord is there. No need for sun or moon because the effulgence is there. In the material world, that Brahma, I was just listening this morning, Prabhupada said, Ravana had electricity and his palace was very well lit. It was like as bright as the moon. So, don't think we're so advanced. In the material world, that Brahma Jyoti, the Lord's spiritual effulgence, is covered by the Mahatattva, the material elements. Therefore, in this material world, we require the assistance of sun, moon, electricity, etc. for light. But in the spiritual world, there is no need of such things. It is clearly stated in the Vedic literature that because of his luminous effulgence, everything is illuminated. All light comes from him. Sun is a reflection. Okay. The conclusion of today's class is there are no electricity bills in the spiritual world. Do you have any questions? That's the conclusion, right? Well, it's one of the conclusions. Prabhu, what did you learn in class today? You don't have to pay electricity bills in the spiritual world. Oh, if that's the case, let's go. Okay, so the next one, this is basic stuff, but it's just kind of it's putting our head in, just to start looking at things from a different perspective. The next one, Kamini, are you able to find this document? We will continue where we left off yesterday. We're going to switch back and forth because I don't want to totally neglect this document. Okay, so the next one is the body does not change. And I'll read one or two more and then we'll go back to yesterday's document. And then you can remind me where we left off. This is called The Body Does Not Change. This is from Bhagavad Gita 15:16. And I think what's nice about reading within the context, a specific topic, then when you read Bhagavad Gita, which we've all read many times, it sometimes comes at you in a different way because now we're focused on a particular topic and we're not reading through the Bhagavad Gita, we're just reading about the topic. So sometimes that strikes us in a way that has a different effect on us or jolts our memory capacity to remember things. So this is 15:16. But in the spiritual world, the body is not made of matter. Therefore, there is no change. In the material world, the living entity undergoes 6 changes: birth, growth, duration, reproduction, then dwindling and vanishing. These are the changes of the material body. But in the spiritual world, the body does not change. There is no old age, there is no birth, there is no death. There all exists in oneness. Shara Sharvani Bhutani, any living entity who has come in contact with matter, beginning from the first created being Brahma, down to a small ant, is changing its body. Therefore they are infallible. In the spiritual world, however, they are always liberated in oneness. I think this verse says in the material world everyone is fallible, in the spiritual world everyone is infallible. But a nice meditation is that often when we look at this world, we see how bad it is, and it's very depressing. Like what's going on now with the demonstrations and so forth. It's bringing to light a truth that there is deeply rooted prejudice within the hearts of many, many people. Or we could say all of us, but for some. It has taken on the form of governmental policies or general, cultural paradigms towards certain groups of people. And so when we hear these things, it's very depressing, and it's about how bad, it just reminds you how bad people are, how bad people can be, how hurtful people can be, how racist or prejudiced they can be. Of course, we know this, but it's a reminder. And part of I think what was going on for devotees when we hear these things is, of course, we feel the need to spread Krishna consciousness because it's a solution to racism. But it also reminds us of what the material world is really like, what's really going on behind the scenes in people's hearts because of the bodily concept and material conditioning and the influence of the modes of nature. That's very painful when you see that, because you know that this is deeply rooted in the heart. This prejudice is deeply rooted in the heart, because of the bodily concept and because of bodily concept social programming, which has taught people to like certain ethnic groups and not like others and so forth. And when it just reminds us of how bad it is here. And when we're reading about the spiritual world, sometimes I think there's so many things I don't like about this world. This is just like personal. Not that I want to leave this world, not that I want to kill myself. I want to do devotional service and I want to do what Krishna wants. But still, when we see the contamination that goes on this world, it's very discouraging. And then when I read descriptions of the spiritual world, I think, oh, okay, this is the place Krishna created, which is exactly the place that doesn't have anything that we don't like. Everything in this world that we don't like, it doesn't exist there. And that's an interesting meditation when you think about it. Because if you actually think about all the things you don't like, there's a lot of them. And all the things that are inconvenient, there's a lot of them. And all the things that are very disturbing, there's a lot of them. And all the things that are exasperating and depressing and so forth, there's a lot of them in this world. And none of them exist in the spiritual world. But not only do they not exist, it's the opposite. It's not like neutral. Okay, you just go there and there's no pain, no depression. No, it's Anandamaya. Vyashat. It's full of bliss. And not only do the miseries not exist, but everything the heart desires, that the heart needs and wants in terms of rasa, relationship, it's all there. And it's growing every day and it never ends eternally. I mean, just meditate on that. That's this amazing thought. So when you meditate on that, then the idea of like wanting to be in this world and remain here, looks like we're a little out of focus or dirty or something. Is that better? Oh yeah, that's amazing. It's amazing what little tissue could do. It could change everything. And it doesn't even cost that much. Little Hare Krishna mantra on your heart, and it can clean a lot of dust off. So, you know, when we talk about material attachment to this world, I'm attached to this world. And, you know, if you think about it in the sense we're speaking about it now, it's kind of strange because it's almost like saying I'm attached to this world, I'm attached to things. Well, you could reframe it and say, I'm attached to getting old, and I'm attached to being in a place where there's a lot of hatred, and there's a lot of violence towards one another, and there's not a lot of love, and there's a lot of hypocrisy, and very, very bad things spoken in the name of goodness, in the name of religion. And you just go down the list, and you would never say, I'm attached to that world. You know, that wouldn't make sense. We're saying, well, I'm attached to my this, my that, my that. But your this, that, and that exists within that world. So if you want this and this and that, you have to, you know, it's like you go into a store, and maybe the store smells, but you want to buy something. But to get what you want, you have to tolerate the odor. Maybe a skunk is in the store. So, you know, you want A, B, and C, or you say you're attached to A, B, and C, but it's within the store of birth, old age, disease, and death, and hatred, and envy, and jealousy, and all the things we don't like about this world. So, if you say I'm attached to this world, I don't know if I could go back to Krishna Loka, etc., etc. Actually, if you look at it in this way, it really makes no sense. In fact, it just becomes ridiculous. Like why would I be attached to this world when everything we want is fulfilled in that world? And that's the way Krishna arranged it. And the irony of it is, this is the world where you can't fulfill yourself, and Krishna created this world so you can't fulfill yourself, and he created that world where you're unlimitedly fulfilled. And then the irony is we're trying to fulfill ourselves here, and the only way you can do it is spiritually. Anandam buddhibardhanam. The ocean of Ananda, it exists in the spiritual world. It doesn't exist in the material world. And we're trying to get it in this world, and it's just ridiculous because it's already existing. You know, it's like trying to grow a vegetable that's like doesn't grow. And you can get it in the store. You know, no, I'm going to grow it. No, but it doesn't grow in this climate. I'm going to grow it anyway. Like, why? Why are you trying to grow it? It's just trouble. You can't do it. It already exists. Just go to the store. So Krishna's already created all the things we want, all the things we need, right? To fulfill our heart's deepest desire for love and happiness. And wow. And another thing, and we all live with this. It's obviously subconscious, but we all live with this reality that we know that everything we have and every relationship we have, it's going to be finished at some point. You know, for some of us, it's sooner. For some of us, it's later. But the time difference is not that great, and it's going to be finished. And that's just, it's like, wait a minute. this doesn't work. This doesn't work for me. Like everything I built up and all my friends and all my relationships, one day they're going to be gone. It doesn't make sense. My mother-in-law had a very bad year. I think it was last year and a half. Her husband died, and then her son died, all within, I think, probably within 1 year. Like, whoa, it's just like your whole family, well, daughter, my wife, she still exists. But, over half your family was just taken away from you. And it's like, that's the world we're attached to? And Krishna is inviting us to the spiritual world. And I don't know, I'm so attached to this world. I don't know if I could surrender, and I don't know if I can give this up. And Prabhupada's saying, wait a minute, you don't know if you could surrender. You are completely surrendered to Maya. So, don't fool yourself and say, I don't know if I can surrender. You already are. But you're surrendered to something that's not giving you what you want, and then you're living in this context. It's just like, it doesn't make sense. I was listening to a story this morning, and a young woman had lost her husband, and she went to talk to Prabhupada about getting married again. And he said, I'm not going to force you. You can do whatever you want, but I think it's better you don't. And, she was saying, it's difficult. I'm young, my daughter's young. And Prabhupada said, read my books. And so when I heard that story, it reverberated a bit in me. It kind of reverberated with the things that I have been saying and realizing about Prabhupada's books. And it was like, if you read my books, you won't have illusion. You won't be dealing with these illusions that I'm attached, I can't surrender, I can't give this up, I don't know if I'm ready to go back to the spiritual world. All of that, Prabhupada's saying, no, just read my books, so you won't be thinking like that. So I think that's an important distinction to make. That if our thinking is so out of line with spiritual thinking, that should be a red flag, and that should be an indication that I really need to read Prabhupada's books more, because the connotation of this story, and this woman is probably 26 with a 2-year-old child, and Prabhupada's saying, don't marry her, maybe even younger than that. You say, well, how could she do that, not remarry? That's really difficult. And Prabhupada's saying, read my books. If you understand the philosophy deeply, carefully, it's going to help you tremendously. Do what would be difficult, because you're thinking, okay, well, life is short and spiritual world is there, and anyway, that was Prabhupada's instruction. He said, I'm not going to force you, you do what you want, but this is what I would recommend. So, books, read the books. Everything is there. Live in the reality. So, I think it's a beautiful meditation that everything that will fulfill our heart's deepest desire, everything, whatever you could think of, it exists in the spiritual world. And really, when you think about it, everything we don't like exists here. Who likes envy? We like love. We like love, compassion, kindness. We like that in ourselves, and we like to see that in other people, isn't it? Isn't it disturbing when you see envy and jealousy, especially in a spiritual society? And isn't it pleasing when you see appreciation and love and glorification and humility? It's like, it just melts the heart, doesn't it? So that's what exists in the spiritual world. There's just like a heart-melting experience at every moment. And there's just, we know the love that the residents of Braj have for Krishna. It's like, it's a love you've never seen. It's completely different. It's pure, and it's intense, and it's deep. And that's what we want. So, yes. So, yeah. Okay, let me read one more. This next one is really interesting. This is entitled Pure Sex Life. Well, let me see if you have anything to say. We should do, well, Anna's asking, we should do service for the taste of service, or the inspiration of service, and also, of course, to please Krishna, and fulfill Prabhupada's desire not to get free from suffering. The answer to this question depends on who you are. Because what we find, even in the material world, that what is good at one level may not be good at another level. I can't think of an example now, but yeah, I can think of an example. Training wheels on a bicycle. So when we're young, we have training wheels. So the bike, we can't balance it, it won't fall over and we won't get hurt. But when we get older, we take off the training wheels. So it's like asking me the question, are training wheels good? And I would say, well, it depends how old the child is. If he's very young, training wheels are good. If he's older, they're not good. They're holding him back. So we know that suffering is a great form of inspiration. And if I do service and I become free from suffering, that encourages me in my Krishna consciousness. So at a certain state of Krishna certain stage of Krishna consciousness, it's very inspiring and very helpful. But anyabhilashitam shunyam, bhakti should be without desire. And jnana, it says jnana and karma. And jnana, one aspect of jnana is the desire to be free from suffering, to be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. So when we're still materially attached, then that helps us. When we're more evolved, we don't need help from that. It's not an inspiration anymore, because we're already detached. But if we're still attached, then to break that attachment, knowledge, gyan, information about the spiritual world, about the suffering of this world, about how we can't be happy, about how our hearts will be fulfilled, it helps. But when you're higher, you're already experiencing that rasa. So in comparison to what's going on in the material world, it's your day-to-day experience that this is better. You don't have to remind yourself. You're not attached to things of this world. You don't have a taste for it. So because you don't have a taste for it, you don't have to remind yourself that you don't have a taste for it. It's your experience. But if you still have a taste for it, then that's when we remind ourselves. Excuse me. I've heard, I never was a runner, but I heard, and I think it's easy to imagine, that if you run and you get into it, you get high from running. It's like so much oxygen and blood is flowing and you feel like amazing. But when you start running, at least for many runners, from what I'm told, you don't feel amazing. It's hard. So then you have to convince yourself, if I run, I'll be healthier, I'll have more energy, it's good for me, it's so on and so forth. And if I don't run, I'll be a couch potato, I'll just be getting fat and tired all the time. And who knows what kind of diseases I'll get. So you need that knowledge of, I'll suffer. If I don't do this, I'll suffer. And one teacher said that the greatest motivation, greater than the desire to enjoy something, is the desire to be relieved from suffering. So to get away from suffering is a stronger motivator than to enjoy something. So Krishna uses that. He creates the material world as a place that has suffering. He even writes in the Gita that it is, just like, hello, in case you didn't notice, it is. And then he writes in the Gita, not only is it a place of suffering, but you should keep noticing it, as we had read last week. You should notice the suffering. So Krishna uses that psychology as a means to detach us. Because before you have taste, how are you going to become detached? You're going to become detached by knowledge. That's why we became devotees. Of course we had a little taste, but for most of us it was the knowledge. I mean, the kirtan also, we can't underscore that. I mean, we can't minimize it. But for most of us, it was, I'm understanding more and more my plight in the material world and how I have experienced that I'm not happy, and I'm understanding more clearly why I'm not happy. So that helps. And then, sometimes you see devotees talking a lot about how bad the world is. And really, when a devotee does that, often what they're doing is they're just trying to remind themselves so they don't go to the other side, which is trying to enjoy it. So if I remind myself that it's bad, it prevents me from thinking about all the things I'd like to enjoy. Yeah, the world is bad, and this is bad, and that's bad. So that's gyan, that's the knowledge. And by reminding yourself that you're suffering, it keeps you steady in devotional service. But when you achieve nishta, or especially ruchi, then you don't have to remind yourself, because at that point you actually have a taste. And so if you find it necessary, there's not to remind yourself that the material world is suffering. If I serve Krishna, I'll be happy, I'll overcome suffering. If you find that helps you, that's fine. That just indicates what level you're on. And someday you'll find that you won't even think about it. You won't talk about it. It's not really on your mind. It's not necessary anymore. Now you're running every day. You love it. You can't wait to wake up and go out and take your morning run. No one has to ask you. No one has to push you. You don't have to push yourself. You don't have to beat your mind. You just love to do it. So it's like that. So I think that's probably the best way to answer that question. And often devotees ask me a similar question. It may not seem similar, but it is. Is it okay if I chant this way? Can I stand up? Is that okay? Or should I sit down? Or is it okay if I walk when I chant? A lot of those kinds of questions. Or can I breathe this way? Or is it okay if I chant? I'm chanting slow. It takes me 10 minutes. And my general answer is that whatever helps you become more absorbed, do that. So I think it's the same. If I feel that remembering the suffering of this world or the freedom I get from suffering becomes an impetus, then that's good. Then use that. Because that will bring you to the point where you won't need it anymore. I think, if you see a senior devotee walking around going, the world's so bad, I hate everything, you might think that's strange. But if you see like a new person coming and they're all bright-faced and they go, yeah, the world was so bad and I was suffering so much, now I'm so happy, you think, okay, that makes sense, that's normal. He's coming out of it and he's just so happy to not be suffering, and he likes serving Krishna because he's not suffering and it makes him happy. But older devotees will talk more about rasa and just relishing the philosophy, not so much that I'm so happy that I'm not suffering, because they're more evolved. Or another way I look at it is, I look at the suffering of this world like someone pushing you from behind. Like you don't want to do something, thinking, like we sometimes give the example of a high diving board and you're looking down and it's like, this looks scary. And you've never jumped off the high diving board, or you haven't jumped off it much. And then, you're standing there and I'm behind you and you're like, I don't know, and you're looking at it and thinking, and you're not diving, you just have to jump. That's nothing's going to happen. And I just go up to you and I go, whoop, I push you off. So on your own, so sometimes on our own, we're not so attracted to Krishna. So Krishna, through the agency of material nature, pushes us. So it's like there's some suffering, and so it kind of pushes us forward. I tried to enjoy this, it didn't work. So I can't go back. I can't walk off the diving board. That's not a solution, because when I go back, it doesn't work. I just suffering. So Krishna wants to push you towards him, so he pushes you. But for the person who likes diving, has been doing it a while, no one has to push them. They just do it because they want to. So that's how you evolve in Krishna consciousness. In a more immature state, we need to be pushed, either by the words of the Guru or events of this world that push us to Krishna. But as you advance, you're pulled more by your attraction. So it's kind of like the example Prabhupada gives. He says, Prabhupada was once asked by a devotee, the devotee, we're from America, and Indian culture is so different than American culture. And one of the things that really bewildered American devotees were arranged marriages. That was like something, it probably went on in America, but not in our generation. They were all love marriages, or at least maybe in some Christian communities, but most of us were not raised in these traditional communities. Some devotee said, Prabhupada, if the marriage is arranged, then where's the love? Like, how do they, they don't even love one another, and we hear in olden times, they didn't even meet one another before they were married. That was the first glimpse, That's another Bhakti Burfi, They say that the first time the husband sees the wife is when he takes off the veil during marriage, And so Bhakti Burfi takes off the veil and he sees this woman is not so beautiful, or in the movie she'd have half her teeth missing and this and that. And he starts screaming and runs away. So it's very strange, isn't it, for us to think you've never even met the person, never talked to them, never even seen them. And now today you go home with this new person. It's like, where's the love? How can you love them? You don't even know them. And Prabhupada said the love will develop through service. Interesting, right? So in Krishna consciousness, it's like that. Maybe I'm not so attracted to diving off the board, but just keep doing it. At a certain point, you want to do it. And you won't anymore need anyone to push, before you say, like, I'm probably not going to jump, so just push me off. So, Krishna, you know what I need, so do it for me. If I need it, push me. But when you're more advanced, you don't need that. That knowledge is not necessary. And you don't feel the need to become free from suffering because you're actually not suffering. Like, obviously, if you're not suffering, then you don't need to become free from suffering. You're relishing. It's all about I'm relishing Krishna consciousness. Yeah, I think was it Lochan Das Thakur? He wrote a song, Vrindavan Ramayastayan. No. Chintamani Ramayastayan was about Vrindavan, the nature of the spiritual world. Maybe we should read that. Chintamani Ramayastayan. Does anyone know that song? Is it Chintamani? Vrindavana Ramayastanam. No, it's Vrindavana. Chintamani da. Mandiramana Vrindavana Ramayastayan. Could somebody find that and put it up? Vrindavana Ramayas, I think it's Ramayastanam. We should read that song. It describes the nature of the spiritual world. But the significant thing about the song is at the end of the song, Narottam Das Thakur says, by remembering Vrindavan, we can be happy even in this miserable material world. I'm going to close my window because somebody is sawing something. Okay. Vrindavan Ramayastanam Divya Chintamani Dhanam Atnamandira Manan Manohara. Something like that. If we could find that, that would be... I'd like to read that because it's interesting. It's about the spiritual world. So, I'm going to pass the quote we were going to read and go on with the conversation. How to lose hope for happiness in the material world. I see in myself that even if things don't go well in my life, still I have hope. I get the conclusion the material world is not that bad after all. Well, maybe the problem is that I have too much positive thinking. No, that's not the reason. I think I answered the question already. I think the answer is you need to read Prabhupada's books more. Like why, Krishna Karshani, we have a choice of going to two places. One place there's old age, disease, and death, and one place there's bliss and eternity. Which one do you want to choose? I kind of like the one with old age, disease, and death because, I've got a few things I like. I've never been over there, and, how do I know I'm going to like it? What if I go there and I don't like it? I'm stuck there forever. What if I don't like Krishna? What if I still want to be Krishna? No, but you won't think that way if you read Prabhupada's books. You would never think that way. So to think that way is a very materialistic, very material way of thinking. It's a material way of looking at the spiritual world. If we look at the material world in a spiritual way, then we'll come up with all these crazy ideas. And then to be hopeful about the material world it's just foolish, actually. It's kind of like thinking everyone's dying, but I won't die. It's like, have you ever seen this situation where a couple wants to get married and some people are looking at them and thinking, I don't know if this is a good match. Or maybe it's a good match, but one or both of the partners, they don't feel they're ready to be married or mature enough. And devotees are thinking, I don't have a good feeling about this marriage. And so they talk to them and say, you should consider this, consider that. And the couples say, no, we're different. We're not like everyone else. Because you're telling them what's happened to everyone else, Well, others were in your situation and they didn't realize A, B, and C. They weren't prepared for D, E, and F, and your situation is similar and the marriage didn't work out. No, we're different. So it's that same kind of thing. No, that's not going to happen to me. I'm different. We're different. And the fact is they're not different. They have the same problems. Right? Have you seen that before? That's very common, isn't it? Well, this is different. He's different. We're different. We have a different relationship than they did. And in most cases, that's not true. It was the same. Same problems, same challenges. So to be optimistic about the spiritual world is, it's foolish. And if you read Prabhupada's books enough, he'll cure you have a disease of optimism for the material world. And if you read Prabhupada's books, you will be cured of that disease. You'll be the most pessimistic person anyone would have ever met. But you'll be positive. You think, I don't want to be a pessimistic person. No, you'll be positive about the spiritual world. You'll just be pessimistic about this world. Why be positive about this world? Just be positive about that world. And be positive about spreading Krishna consciousness. Be positive about your own Krishna consciousness. So being positive is good. Being optimistic is good, as long as it's optimistic about the right things. If it's optimistic about the wrong things, it's like, I'm going to grow a mango tree in the winter in Poland. Oh, Prabhu, mango trees don't grow in the snow. Well, you're so pessimistic. You have to be optimistic. I'm an optimist. I'm going to grow a mango in the snow. No, you're not. Your optimism means you're an idiot. That's all I can say. So it's like that. We don't want to have idiot optimism, to think that something's going to happen that can't happen. That's just foolish. And it's equally as foolish to think that everything in the spiritual world is not perfectly going to fulfill my desire. And you'll get that if you read Prabhupada's books regularly and long enough. That will become very clear, and you won't be thinking materialistically optimistic, or what should we call this class, the optimistic idiot? Optimism is a good quality. It's just what you apply it towards. That's the question. Parker Brown says, you mentioned the training wheels example. That using training wheels holds back an older kid from riding on his own, basically advancing in bike riding. Does it also apply to the gyan to bhakti? Yeah, that was the example. That's the training wheels are gyan. The question goes on, and it's hard for me to read because I have to, excuse me, I have to move over to read it. Yeah, I have this white shirt, and okay, I'm going to move over. For example, reminding ourselves of the spirit of the suffering of this world is helpful until we taste rasa. Then once we're tasting rasa, this dismal knowledge holds us back from going further in rasa. Is this no, it doesn't hold us back. It's just it's just you put training wheels on bikes for young kids. That's your job now. You tell other people about it, but you don't need training wheels. And maybe sometimes you have training wheels just to show them how to ride. But for you, you won't need them. So it's not a question of holding back. Plus, whatever Krishna says for a devotee is nectar. So Krishna says the material world is a place of misery. So even in that higher stage, by hearing that, because it's Krishna's words, it's sweet, it's beautiful, but you process it in a different way. It's not like, oh, I'm suffering, I don't like to suffer, I need to hear this to get out of it. It's you could say it's rasa. So it's not going to get in the way, it will enhance your rasa, but it's not necessary from the jnana platform to detach you because you already are. And that's not, that the world is a place of suffering is not like a real inspiration for you on that level. It's just a reality that you experience, but it's not an inspiration any longer. Plus, your motive for serving Krishna is not to become free from suffering. So if you are suffering, then your motive is, all right, well, if I'm supposed to suffer, then I suffer. That's what Krishna wants. So you're not trying to become free from suffering. So that's also, your motive is not to become free from suffering. Your motive is to please Krishna. That's a higher stage, and you'll evolve to that. In the West, the woman marries the man she loves. In the East, the woman loves the man she marries. Ooh, ooh. Put that on a t-shirt, walk down the street in Scotland, and you'll get attacked. Right? I like that. In the West, the woman marries the man she loves. In the East, the woman loves the man she marries. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hare Krishna. I love that. Who said that at Hoxaja? Where'd you read that? And Hoxaja's going to say, you said that. Maybe I did say that and I forgot. If I did say that, I give myself 5 gold stars. If I did say that, then that's cool. Oh, we have the song, the lyrics. Okay, I was skipping. Kamala Sundari. Oh, Kamala Sundari says, our goal is to be surrendered to Krishna and go back to the spiritual world and be detached from our temporary families. As a mother, this seems impossible, especially with young children. How are we to detach? Oh, yeah, it's simple. Kamasundari, your daughter belongs to Krishna. That's your detachment. So take care of your daughter very well. And be attached to your daughter because your daughter belongs to Krishna. She's not your daughter. One time, Prabhupada said, everything belongs to Krishna. And this watch, it belongs to Krishna. But if you try to take this watch from me, I will not let you because I'm using this for Krishna. So You are attached to your daughter. But how is that attachment, right? So your attachment is, you are attached that your daughter becomes a pure devotee. And then your detachment is, maybe she won't become a pure devotee. Then what do? Maybe she won't turn out exactly the way you had wanted her to turn out to be, the way you envisioned her. Then what do? And, she might get sick, and then your attachment is going to be painful. So, Krishna created attachment in the heart of mothers. Otherwise, if kids don't have attached mothers, kids will go crazy, emotionally and physically. So Prabhupada said, it's natural to be attached. But he would always say, don't hit the threshold. He didn't say it this way, but the way I understand it is, don't hit this. There's a threshold of attachment, which is healthy, but you go beyond that if it starts to become unhealthy. And then you pamper them with so much sense gratification, and you just want them to be materially happy, and you neglect their spiritual life, and you think you own them and control them. So you always remember, detachment just means it belongs to Krishna. I'm very attached. I like using what I'm attached to, but I only use it for Krishna, and I see it as Krishna's. So your daughter belongs to Krishna. That's your detachment. Your husband belongs to Krishna, your house belongs to Krishna, your clothes belong to Krishna, your money belongs to Krishna, your car belongs to Krishna, your garden belongs to Krishna, and your body and mind and soul belong to Krishna. That's the detachment. So, if we preach to mothers to become detached, and they misunderstand what detachment is, you'll have a lot of very maladjusted children and a lot of weird mothers. Right? So attachment is natural, but we have to maintain attachment to family in a way that we still become attached to Krishna. It doesn't interfere. That was Prabhupada's point with attachment. You don't want it to interfere with your bhakti. That's the idea. Is that okay? So attachment is not a problem until it interferes with our bhakti. And part of that interference is I think I'm the enjoyer. You're not the enjoyer of your daughter, you're the servant. And your job is to make her a pure devotee. Or maybe she'll make you a pure devotee. Who knows? Anything's possible. Here's the lyrics. Dun, 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 dun. Here's the song. Vrindavana Ram Yashtanan Divya Chintamanida Ratanam Ratana Mandira Manohara Abritya Kavindi. I can't read it. Is it Tir? It's not Tirde, Nirde. Rajabang Shakeli Kare Tahashobe Kanakaka. That's a melody one devotee made up. Prabhupada asked him to make it up. So I just want to. Where's the translation? I want the translation. We're talking about reading songs in English, and you give me it in Sanskrit. How many people understand Sanskrit? Raise your hand. Okay, we didn't get any hands raised. We need the translation. Or did you put the translation up later and you got blocked by all the comments after that? Here it is. Beautiful, okay? This is especially for Krishna Karshani, for you to meditate on this every day. Beautiful Vrindavan is filled with Chintamani gems and many jewel palaces and temples. Many regal swans play in the waters of the Jamuna, and in those waters a splendid golden lotus flower grows. Verse 2. In the middle of that lotus is a golden palace surrounded by 8 petals. Of these 8 petals, the 8 principal gopis reside, and in the center, Lord Chamrasundar and beautiful Srimati Radharani sit on a jeweled throne. That's what you're supposed to meditate on when you chant japa, in case you didn't know. The great beauty of the divine couple and their charming joking and laughter continually showers nectar everywhere. Narottam Das Thakur says, I pray that these beautiful, so it's Narottama, it's not Narottam, it's Narottama, Das Thakur, I pray that these blissful, eternal, transcendental pastimes of the divine couple may be always manifested in my heart. Where? There's more. No? Karshini has made a confession. I'm an optimistic idiot. I need to Prabhupada's books more. You're right. Yeah, Prabhupada's right. I'm just repeating. Mm-hmm. In the Western woman, married men, they love, and Eastern women love the man they marry. Let's say the way it is, and let's not change it. So let our force Western women. I don't understand. You said you have to say that in English, Krishna Karshini. I totally missed it. Marry, they marry. Marry means happy. You mean marry? If the Western women marry a man they love, and the Eastern women love the man they marry, let it stay the way it is, and let's not change it. In a sense, let's not force Western women for arranging marriages. Oh yeah. But arranged marriages have a lower divorce rate than, arranged marriages have lower divorce rate than traditional marriages. Okay, so we're going to go back. We're going to read one more thing. This is, we're not getting to our other paper today. And I lost it in the spiritual. Okay, we're going to read one more thing. This is from Vishwanath Chakrabarti. This is first canto, first chapter, first verse. Where did he get it? He got it from his wife. His wife said that. Wow. Oh, amazing. So let's read this. This is called Pure Sex Life. This is from first canto, first chapter, first verse. Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur specifically deals with the original and pure sex psychology called adi rasa, devoid of all mundane inebriety. The whole material creation is moving under the principle of sex life. In modern civilization, sex life is the focal point for all activities. Wherever one turns his face, he sees sex life predominant. I was in an airport once, and the magazine rack was huge. And I'd say 80 to 90% were young, beautiful women's faces or full bodies. And a few young men, mostly young, beautiful women. So Prabhupada says, wherever you turn your face, he sees sex life. Therefore, sex life is not unreal. Its reality is experienced in the spiritual world. The material sex life is but a perverted reflection of the original fact. The original fact is in the absolute truth, and thus the absolute truth cannot be impersonal. It is not possible to be impersonal and contain pure sex life. Consequently, the impersonalist philosophers have given indirect impetus to the abominable mundane sex life because they have overstressed the impersonality of the ultimate truth. In other words, what Prabhupada is saying, if there's sex in the material world and it's a cause of entanglement, then the impersonalists will say in the spiritual world there is no sex. And Prabhupada is saying, no, there is an original sex, which is really the pure love of Radha and Krishna, and it's perverted in this world, so it comes out as lust. What we see as sex, and which we call love, the sensual gratification that a man and a woman experience, which we call love. Let's make love. No. Shastra doesn't call it love. It calls it kama, lust. But there is pure sex, which is really, maybe sex is not the right word, but it's called adi rasa, the original rasa. And the original rasa of love becomes perverted into what we call love in this world, which is sexual love. But the impersonalists seeing sexual love think, well, in the spiritual, you want to make that void, so there's no sexual love in the spiritual world. There is, but it's not perverted. So I think this is so important. We've heard this so many times. The material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world, and it's really good to see it that way. That there is a reality to everything, and what we're seeing here is just, it's not what it is. And you get stuck when you start seeing this world in a way that you judge or use it as a lens to view the spiritual world. Then it's like you can't enter into that understanding. You have to drop your conceptions. Then you can understand the spiritual. And sometimes when devotees would ask about the spiritual world, Prabhupada would say, you can't understand now. You will understand as you advance, but in your material conditioned state, you can't understand. But at least you can understand in theory that it's perverted. That's a good place to start. So that's what's being talked about here. Consequently, man, without information of the actual spiritual form of sex, has accepted perverted material sex life as the all in all. There is a distinction between sex life in the diseased material condition and spiritual sex life. Of course, when Prabhupada says spiritual sex life, we get all these connotations of sex as we know it. It's nothing to do with that. When you see Radha and Krishna, when you see Krishna with the gopis, one thing you should remind yourself is this is love. This is how I understand love. What I see in the movies, what I'm trying to do with the opposite sex, it's much different than what's going on here. This is pure. This is the real thing. I can have a little bit of this in relation to my husband, my wife, my children, and I should. But the more it becomes reflected, perverted, the more it will become lust, the more it will be about me. And we've discussed this before, that Radharani's position is she can only experience happiness if Krishna's happy. So if she does something which would be considered miserable or considered a kind of suffering, but it makes Krishna happy, it makes her happy. And that's a very special form of love. That your suffering makes me happy. And the other thing is, I can't experience happiness independent of giving Krishna pleasure. So, can you experience happiness independent of giving Krishna pleasure? So, for conditioned souls, the answer is yes. I do that all the time. Even for devotees, have you ever done anything that makes you happy that doesn't give Krishna pleasure? You'll say yes. Yes. But on this level of pure bhakti, that's impossible. You cannot be happy unless it gives Krishna pleasure. And if it gives Krishna pleasure, you cannot be unhappy. I was saying, was it yesterday or some class I was giving? Maybe it was yesterday, yeah. We were saying that, I made a comment that, or at least I was thinking like this, that, sometimes somebody say, I'm depressed, I'm unhappy, this and that. And I was thinking, what Mahaprabhu gave is so special. It's so rare, so high, so sweet, so unusually blissful, etc. And we have that. And that meditation, that appreciation, should be sufficient to wipe out any tendency to be upset, depressed, etc. about anything. Because in light, that light is so bright, it should just destroy any kind of negativity. Oh, Prabhu, but this, when I think of this, then I think of that, and when I do this, I do that, and I have a dream about this, and I don't want to do that. And I'm thinking, how could you feel that way? You just got the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. You are on your path to experiencing the love that the gopis have, and you don't even qualify for it, and you're going to get it in one life just by chanting. And you're depressed about some stupid thing, that happened when you were 7 years old. If you look at it that way, it can help you tremendously, because you realize, this is amazing what I have. And the fact that I'm upset about something, even something that happens not when you were 7, but as an adult. Oh, so-and-so said this to me, and that's not fair. And you know, and 78 years ago, this happened, And when you think about that, of course, I understand that bad things happen. I don't want to minimize that. But I was just thinking, when you think about the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, it actually makes those things like so insignificant. Could you imagine, I flew in or I drove to your house and I wrote you out a check for $100 million US. And you get the check and you say, thank you, but, the GBC and, my temple president and actually, my mother, didn't treat me well. Yeah, that wouldn't happen, right? That would all go out the door. You'd be like, woohoo, I don't have to work. I can preach and do all kinds of amazing things and I can live the life I want. Isn't it? So it's something like that. When you realize the value of Lord Chaitanya's mercy, what you have, it's like nothing can really be bad because you have that. Okay, I have $100 million. Yeah, but, I just stubbed my toe. It's okay. You can go to the best doctor now. You'll get over it, right? You can afford to go to the best doctor. You can afford to go in a limousine to the best doctor. You can afford to hire your own doctor for a year. So I think that's important to recognize. That this love of Radha and Krishna, Mahaprabhu is giving, and we have access to it, and we have access to taste it, to experience it, and to develop it. And so to be like hung up on something that somebody said to me, 14 years ago that I didn't like, I understand that. I understand it well. I know why that happens, but I'm just saying, if we look at the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, then it's like, how can you think like that? It doesn't make sense. Okay. Now, let's see. Okay, Kamaniya, let's go back to the document because I promised we would read from this document. And we have to find, we're only probably going to read one or two things, but I think the last thing was... Okay, this is a nice way to end. It's a long one. I don't know if we'll finish it. And when we first started doing these courses, we were reading a lot more. I'm talking so much now. I wanted, to give you all a taste of reading Prabhupada's books, so we're reading a lot. So anyway, let's see if we can read this. We have time. This is April 11th, 1969. Govinda Dasi. Could you describe Krishna's pastimes as a cowherd boy whenever he goes out in the morning with the cowherd boys? Prabhupada, yes, you can, because have you seen how you have no experience here in your country. Have you got any experience? But in India, we have got experience how in the morning the cowboy takes some food from the mother and with the cows goes to the field. The cows are let loose on the grazing ground. They are enjoying, and this cowboy is sometimes singing. The flute, Krishna's flute, is because he's a cowboy. The cowboys still play in that flute. In India, you find. Because the cows are they are doing their own work, and what this boy will do, they are playing. Now, you see cows grazing. When they're grazing, you don't have anything to do. So the boys are playing, and they're playing their flute. There are many cowherd boys. They are playing, sometimes playing on flutes, sometimes sporting, sometimes eating. So Krishna was exactly doing like that. All the cowherd boyfriend went with him. Krishna was, of course, a very rich man's son. His father was very rich, so he used to take with him very nice foodstuff, laddu, kachori, and other. His poor friends, they were taking chapati, dry chapati, laughs. So they were enjoying dividing your food, my food, his food. And sometimes there was some trouble in the forest because Kamsa was after Krishna to kill him. He was sending his assistants. So some asura would come, Bakasura, Agasura, and Krishna would kill them. And the boys would return and narrate the story to their mother. Oh, my dear mother, such and such thing happened and Krishna killed it. Very laughter. The mother will. Oh yes, our Krishna is very wonderful. Laughter. So Krishna was their enjoyment. That's all. The mother is speaking of Krishna. The boy is speaking of Krishna. So therefore, they did not know anything but Krishna. Krishna. Whenever there is some trouble, oh Krishna. When there is a fire, oh Krishna. That is the beauty of Vrindavan. Their mind is absorbed in Krishna, not through philosophy, not through understanding, but natural love. Krishna is our village boy, our relative, our friend, our lover, our master. Some way or other, Krishna, that is beauty. Therefore, Shukadeva Goswami, describing playing of the boys, Itam Shatam Brahma Shukanubhutya Dasyam Gatanam Paradaifatina Maya Shritanam Naradharakena Shakam Bijaru Kutapunya Punja. Famous verse. Oh, these boys playing with Krishna, they have attained this position. Oh, after, I mean to say, accumulating many, many births, pious activities. Krita punya punjaha. Just like a man collects dollar, and one time he amasses money, say millions of dollars. Similarly, Sukadeva Goswami is describing that these boys who are playing with Krishna, they have amassed their pious activities for millions and billions of births. Because with whom they're playing Itam Brahma Shukanubhutya Shatam, the stalwart philosophers who are after Brahma Shuka, Brahmananda. That Brahmananda is here, Krishna, and Dasyam Gatanam Para Daivatena. And for the devotees, he is the Supreme Lord. And Mayashrishtanam Naradharakena. Those who are covered in Maya, for them he is an ordinary human boy. And with him, these boys are playing. They have amassed pious activities of many, many millions of births. Otherwise, it was not possible. So, they do not know Krishna is God. They do not know. But their affection for Krishna is so great and nice that it is inexplicable. They were playing. Krishna is defeated. Oh, Krishna has to take the friend on his shoulder. Yes, because he was defeated. So Krishna is accepting. Yes, come on my shoulder. So this Krishna Leela, that also, one who tries to understand and understands, they're also like those boys who have amassed pious activities. So you try to understand this Leela, you're amassing pious activity. It is not ordinary thing, yes, and Maya Shishtanam Naradharakena. Those who are under the clutches of Maya, they will think Krishna's pastimes. What is this? What is this? Krishna conscious persons, they are enjoying about Krishna going to the field with some cows? Yes. Just like one of our students, that rancher, he asked me, Swamiji, how is it that Krishna, well, he's probably from New York, Swamiji, how is it that God has become a cowherd boy? Yes, because ordinary people, they are thinking God must be so great that they cannot conceive. And that great personality, how he becomes a coward boy, playing with coward boys. Yes, Brahma also became astonished, and therefore he came back to check whether he is my Lord or not. Laughter. Yes, bewildered. Muyanti jitra surayaha. The Bhagavata says, therefore, even the great personalities like Brahma, they are also bewildered to understand the personality. He, Brahma, also heard that at Vrindavan Krishna has appeared and he is acting as a coward boy. He was also astonished. Oh, my Lord, he's become a coward boy? So he came to check. He, I mean to say, took away all the coward boys and cows and everything. And after a few seconds, he came. He said, Krishna, he saw Krishna, is playing in the same way. And although stolen coward boys and cows, they, by the, energy of Maya, by influence of Brahma, they were kept in a secret cave. I mean to say, it's just a pause, like we say, like you're thinking. They were sleeping. This one devotee, he used to count how many a Bhagavatam speaker says in a class. He was like very critical. You said 47 times in your class. Hare Krishna. They were sleeping, but Krishna is playing. That means he manifested again with the cowherd boys and cows. Then he was convinced, yes, he is my Lord. Then Brahma Stava. There is Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhabi Tabi Stabirya Eva Nicharupataya Kalabi. Brahma Samhita 537. So Krishna can expand in many thousand times. What Brahma will do by stealing? No, that is not possible. Brahma was also convinced. These things you'll find in Srimad Bhagavatam. This is 1969, so nobody had that story yet. You realize that in 1969, there was no Krishna book, no 10th canto. We didn't have access to these stories. This is probably the first time anybody was hearing this story. So Brahma was convinced. These things you'll find in Bhagavatam. Brahma vimohan. Even Brahma is bewildered. What to speak of ordinary men like us. So Krishna Leela, to understand, there's no need of understanding. Simply you love Krishna, then the whole business finished. In other words, you just love, you can't understand, so don't try. Just love Krishna and everything will be fine. You'll understand everything. Just like if you touch fire, if you understand it or not, the warmness is there. Similarly, either you understand Krishna or do not understand Krishna. It doesn't matter. Simply if you love Krishna, then your life is perfect. That's all. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, we got through that. Now we're going to end class. I just wanted to make sure I read sufficiently today. And today's Tuesday, so tomorrow. Because today is Tuesday, that means tomorrow is Wednesday. And no great significance. Okay, it's time, as we do now, is tonight. There's class at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is translated into Spanish on the topic, on the philosophy of forgiveness, which is really turning out to be more of a class about the character and qualities of a pure devotee and how to understand those character and qualities and how in our position we learn to develop them, how we can do that. So if you're around and awake at that time, we'll see you. Nice to see you all, and Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanandi.